Welcome, or welcome if this is your first time visiting for the webinar this evening. And if this is your first time, I'm Laura Goldman. I'm the Registered Dietitian presenting with you tonight. And forewarning, I have a rather verbal cat who's been meowing a bit in the background, so be prepared just in case. But he does sometimes like to say hello to the camera, so you can be prepared for that as well. I do believe we are 1 minute past the hour, so I do try to be timely on these things since I know we all have places that we want to go. And also, since the theme is keeping it simple, then we'll also keep the presentation simple and short. So, simple and smart, easy meal solutions for healthy eating. To preface this, I'll say that I do touch on a lot in terms of general coverage of this topic, because what might be simple for one person might not be considered simple by another person. As someone who loves to cook, you can tell me that a recipe will take 5 minutes or 4 hours. If I like the sound of the recipe, I'll try it out at some point. But for other people, if it takes longer than 10 minutes, not interested. And all points are valid. So I want to make sure that we can try and cover it as best we can to touch on everyone's interest. So remember, as I always say, it's the quality of your calories that matter. And so when we're looking at picking out meals, we're trying to find the high quality calories. And that comes in terms of protein, that comes from non-starchy vegetables. It does come in the form of some carbohydrates, but we're trying to make sure that we're maximizing our nutrition whenever possible. So what we'll cover today? Well, as I talked about the quality of your calories mattering, I will prioritize the nutrients where you want to consider being the most important if you're cooking or choosing food from someplace. We'll cover simple at home, which means meals, recipes, and a couple tips. I also have links to some resources, which I know you can't really click on links through this webinar, but I will leave it up long enough for you to write it down or at least take a screenshot. In terms of dining out, I will have a few tips for navigating a menu, and get ready to answer a couple multiple choice questions. Don't worry, you will be anonymous for it. I've made it so that you won't show up with your name there for answering. And also I'll give you some updates on some food companies that are now marketing their foods as GLP-1 friendly, so you can find those in the store. And I also have a couple, but definitely not a comprehensive list of some ready-to-heat, home delivery, or pickup options. And as always, I will leave the end open to your questions about this topic or really any other nutrition-related topic you may have. And in case you are unfamiliar with the Zoom layout, around the bottom left-hand corner, I believe, is where you can click for the Q&A, and you again have the option to leave yourself as anonymous, or if you leave your name there, just be aware I'll say your name just so you're aware of when I'm addressing you and your question. So where are the priorities with our nutrients? Well, the top priority, as always, and you already know, I'm sure, is protein, especially lean protein whenever possible. Animal or plant-based, it doesn't matter, but we want to look at the lean proteins. So when you're looking at a recipe, a menu item, whatever, the first question is, where's the protein? Or I suppose, where's the beef, for those who remember that Wendy's advertisement? Then, of course, we want to look for high fiber foods. That can come in the form of non-starchy vegetables, ideally. And so what I mean by that is basically any vegetables that aren't your potatoes, corn, or say sweet peas. Then we've got whole fruits. I encourage you to avoid dried fruits if possible. And whole grains. So oats, wheat and wheat bran, farro, which is actually spelled F-A-R-R-O, excuse me for that, quinoa, and bulgur. So those whole grains add in quite a bit of fiber. They're very filling. And yes, rice can also be considered a whole grain, but We tend to aim for the white rice and do quite a bit of it, and so I wanted to look for other less common grains. And then looking at, let me see here. This is timely, so I will answer this question right now. As long as there is no sugar added, is dried fruit okay? Incredibly good question, and I'm glad you answered, or I'm sorry, I'm glad that you asked because I'm happy to answer that. Dried fruit, the main problem with it is sort of a volume issue. So imagine 15 grapes, and that's pretty filling, it's pretty large. And then imagine 15 raisins. It's probably, there's a good chance that you could get 30 grapes worth, maybe more, of raisins than you would with actually physically eating that many grapes. So what ends up happening is people have a tendency to overdo it with dried fruit than the whole fruit because it's concentrated, it's smaller, so you're going to be able to eat it faster, it's going to be quicker, and then you could get almost twice as much, maybe more, depending of fruit than you would have otherwise if you just eaten the whole fruit. Now, if you already inherently know this, and you say, well, no, I would not do more than one serving of fruit or something like that. I've never seen a dried orange, but I'm trying to use that as a reference. So if you say, I would have only eat one orange's worth, or I would only eat one apple's worth of dried fruit. If you know that that's what it is, then I won't really fuss. The issue is that it tends to get away with a get away from us, much like fruit juice can get away from us as well. And that, like, a glass of orange juice is usually equal to 2 or 3 oranges versus if you were going to eat a whole orange. This is sort of in the other way where a little box of raisins is probably worth 2, maybe 3 bunches of grapes. So they're not inherently bad, but it can get away from us. So thank you very much for asking. I'm glad that I could clarify that. Moving beyond high fiber foods, going to minimally processed foods. And that's a tough sort of delineation, but basically, of course, if you're shopping on the border of a grocery store, that's very minimally processed. When you go on the inside, then we're looking for fewer ingredients and a little bit closer to the plant or closer to the animal is how I like to think about it. And then if you're using fats, ideally 9 times out of 10, if you can choose to cook with olive or avocado oil works better with really high heat. It has a much higher smoke point than olive oil. And so those 2 oils are going to be some of your friends. Not the only ones, but they're 2 of my favorites and the 2 main ones I have in my kitchen right now. Keeping it simple at home. So first of all, it's about finding recipes that you like and you enjoy. And there are some websites. If you didn't know, Premier Weight Loss actually has a little section on their website that is a collection of recipes and a shocking amount. I remember when I looked at it for the first time, there's really quite a selection, which is wonderful to have ready and available for you. So feel free to take a look at that. And then, of course, another website that I enjoy just because there's a lot of selection, you can narrow things down by food type or what you're looking for. It doesn't say GLP-1 yet, but skinnytaste.com. I don't like the term skinny, but it's easy to remember, so you can go there as well, and you can sort of filter for protein, filter for carbohydrates, and I think it's a good resource. Again, also, it's free recipes without a whole lot of pop-ups, so I enjoy that too. In terms of cookbooks, this was a quick look, and I was delighted to see that there are actually GLP-1 cookbooks. So you can see 2 pictures I got off of Amazon. Those are coming out. The GLP-1 diet, the one in the top picture, that one is coming out August 19th, which feels like forever away, but it is coming out. And then The one on the bottom, it looks like it's already available, the Ultimate GLP-1 Cookbook. So these are specifically geared toward anybody who's on any of the weight loss injectable medications. So that can be very helpful. And again, Skinny Taste, not only do they have their website, but they have cookbooks as well. If you like to use apps, also there is a website. There's a company called Eat Love that they do have, what they do is meal plans, essentially. They will use an algorithm to design a meal plan, and they have one that is geared toward GLP-1 diet. Now, someone may have to correct me in the future because I do know it's available for the Pro, if you will. So for me, I was actually using this product for a little while, but at the time I didn't like the way that they were creating some of their diet plans. It seems like they've improved quite a bit. So if for whatever reason, if it's only on the Pro section, it might be time for me to reinvest, because I'd be happy to help people design some of these meals for them. However, feel free to investigate it, because they do have some pretty easy, again, and I truly mean easy recipes that also look delicious that you can use. And so I definitely encourage trying it out. Some other tips when you're cooking at home is that, yeah, I'm sure we might remember maybe the batch cooking trend. That's actually a great idea, especially if you have limited time during the week. You can prepare and freeze ahead many types of foods, sauces especially. The only thing that I guess doesn't freeze too well are some fruits and sometimes certain proteins, but there are ways to navigate this. And so freeze ahead, especially if you're making some chilies or anything like that. Make it, you can thaw it, or just have a day where you're pre-chopping everything. Also, frozen fruits and vegetables are just as good, just as healthy as fresh, sometimes more so, just because they are picking it right when it's ripe and it doesn't get the time to deteriorate and lose some of its nutrient quality. So I actually have believe it's a mirepoix selection of vegetables in my freezer right now. So it's already chopped and ready to go, and you just have to dump it in. And I'm going to make it for a chicken and dumplings recipe that I have that's pretty healthy and delicious. And so that's one way to make short work of more time-consuming process. So don't avoid the frozen fruits and vegetables. They can be your friend in this instance. Now, dining out, when it comes time to picking from menu items, I think this is where, at least when I've worked with people, this is an area that people get hung up on, and it's understandable because there are so many protein choices out there, excuse me. There's so many menu choices out there, and it's hard to figure out what do I pick. And you're with a crowd and you're socializing, and you can sit there and just stare at the menu for what could feel like hours. So hopefully we can try and help out with that. So first of all, you want to remember the priorities. It's the same as before. You want to find the lean protein. So as you're looking through the menu, scan it out, avoid breaded and fried, and see if the menu item lists vegetables. A lot of times, if it's an entree, it will talk about the main item, but then it will talk about what it's served with. So if it's not mashed potatoes, which I know many of them are as the side, if there's a non-starchy vegetable listed, you're already on the way to a winning choice. And also, if you're at a restaurant where they offer bread or chips, especially ahead of time, just try and limit that. You can ask for it not to be delivered, but I know many times we're always so excited because many of the places that provide the bread or the chips, it's pretty delicious as well. Just try and limit how much you're going to have, or commit to having half of a roll, or you're going to have only 5 chips. See if you can finish the salsa in as few of chips as possible, is sort of the way I try to encourage people to go. In terms of fast food, good news is that the booklet that Premier Weight Loss hands out, page 13, has fantastic recommendations that you can use for that. So please use that as a reference point for fast food. in terms of sit-down restaurants, and I'm not talking about the Michelin star restaurants or anything like that. I think if you're going to go to one of those, just enjoy what they've got. But say we're talking about the common places, maybe Olive Garden or Texas Roadhouse. I wanted to give some examples, and let's see if after just these few minutes talking with me, you can figure out what you think might be the best choice. I went with Olive Garden because I know that pasta is a difficult area to navigate. I wouldn't say I'm anti-pasta, but I would say there are better choices. But say you're going to pick pasta, let's see what you think might be the best choice. So I'm going to pull up the poll here if I can, if the cat will let me as well. Let's see here. Okay, so among your options here, which pasta option is best? I will let you know a couple of these we could negotiate. So there isn't one solid right answer, but I'll be interested to see what everybody has to say. I did make this a bit tricky on purpose. I'll just wait to see the responses here in a second. And excuse me while I clear my throat. Okay, one moment. Forgive me. I have a bit of a scratchy throat tonight. Anyway, so, well, this couldn't have gone better. So it looks like the majority of you answered shrimp scampi, then followed with spaghetti with meat sauce. And then we were even at the end with spaghetti with marinara and eggplant parmesan. So the shrimp scampi would probably be top of the line best. It's got the protein. You can also see that there are quite a few vegetables in there. And it is the lowest by far in calories, if I remember correctly. Maybe the marinara is lower, but there's the reason why I wouldn't necessarily go with the marinara is because there's not really any protein in there. We could negotiate it if you wanted to put on, say, maybe a grilled chicken, but on its own, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. So if you're like me and you don't like shrimp, the next best choice is actually the spaghetti with meat sauce. We're still getting in the protein. You're still getting in some vegetables from the tomato in the sauce. And then probably the eggplant parmesan would be last, just because that is a deep fried eggplant. And so there's not as much value from it that you would necessarily get from the vegetables. But again, I did make this tricky on purpose. So I can show you how the results were. Hope I didn't go too fast. Okay. So excellent responses there. And moving on though, and this, I do apologize for the next slide being as busy as it is. The Texas Roadhouse, their list of sides was enormous. So yes, I left it here though, because I thought this was going to be a great practice. This one, they offer 2 sides. So which 2 sides would you pick out of these? And there are multiple combinations you can go with. So we'll just talk about which would be best. Okay. Wow. There are some universal responses on this one. So I'm going to end the poll. And just so you know, there are multiple combinations that you could have gone with. So let me share these results. So steamed vegetables, everybody picked those, of course, which I would say is an excellent first choice. And I can't recall if I've ever tried their steamed vegetables, but you'd be surprised at how good some restaurants can make their steamed veggies. They're more appealing at times than you would think. The green beans were also a great choice. House salad, a good choice. Believe it or not, typically Caesar salad may be better because they use romaine lettuce, which tends to be more nutritionally valuable than iceberg lettuce that is more often put in the house salad. But, I would rather someone choose either type of salad over, say, the steak fries. Also, sauteed onions. I love sauteed onions. I think they're delicious. I think those are valid and they have a place. And the grilled shrimp sidekick, that was an interesting one I hadn't seen before. And I thought, what a nice little thing to add on there. Nice protein. Some other really good options, something I'll mention is oftentimes at restaurants like this, the sodium content is through the roof. And so that may not be an issue for you, but if it is, then options like the applesauce or along with, say, the salad or the steamed vegetables, if you ask no salt, can be something to add on. I'm not a big applesauce fan, but if we're looking about sodium control, that could be part of a side you could include. But the grilled shrimp sidekick, the sauteed onions have their place. Just make sure the other thing doesn't include too much butter. Similar with mushrooms, and then your salads, the green beans, and then the steamed veggies, but everyone avoided all the rest. And thanks for taking the time to read that incredible list. Typically, Texas Roadhouse, what I saw is you basically can pick the entree and then you can pick two sides. And so as long as your entree is generally a grilled type of meat or fish, pick the right size, you're off to a good start. So thank you for participating in those little quizzes there. So what about some ready to heat meals, ready to buy meals for you? Well, this was some fairly new news, but Nestle, the brand, they have a complete line of foods that are geared toward being GLP-1 friendly. They're called Vile Pursuit. I've included a picture of what they provide. And yes, that is pizza down there. So they have this entire line designed specifically for people who are taking these medications. And so, yes, it's a marketing way of getting, aiming for specific customers, but it can be helpful. So I think that's a great way to go for it. ConAgra, they own Healthy Choice. And so they have what is called On Track. And if you see on track on their boxes, you can know that there's going to be a high protein product, it's going to be high fiber, and of course it will say GLP-1 friendly. So again, it's a nice little tool to use if you're shopping and you're looking for a frozen meal, because those are very convenient if you are at work and you need to heat something up, or you just are tired and you don't want to bother with dirtying up the kitchen. Let's just heat something. Now you know you've got something that's a little more safe that you can feel confident in consuming. Project Lean Nation, I just learned about this, and it's located in Carmel. I didn't see anything specific that said GLP-1, but they do offer essentially complimentary consults, meetings. And so if you talk about the goals and you look for high protein, looks like they offer enough products. They even offer, I believe, some smoothies and some protein focused foods that you can go through them and you can get the right type of products that should help you out. Daily Harvest used to only be available online, but more and more I've seen it in stores. They're very plant-based. Some of their foods, I'll admit, because I've tried them, aren't the most delicious, but there are some real winners. And so they are also aiming for some people who are on these medications. Then Tempo Meals. This one's a bit newer, and it says it's dietitian designed. Again, I didn't see anything specific that said GLP-1, but they really outline the calorie content if you're looking for certain protein content, fiber content. And again, there's dietitians involved, and so you'll know that you're getting what they'll say that you should be getting. And then finally, I did want to mention, since they are available and around here, Herculean meal prep. This one might be an option, but the selection can be limited. In fact, I looked today just to see what might be out there, and I filtered it by looking for high protein, low carb, and really, I think two things came back, and the only one that stood out to me really was the turkey chili. So just be aware, it may be an option, but your options will be probably most limited there. But now it's time for your questions about this, or again, any other nutrition related topic. And of course, also, if you have input or you've used certain brands or companies and have had great success, this is also your time to shine and share with the class, if you will, because we can all help each other. And for future presentations, I would be curious to know if you find 6 p.m. or the noon hour more convenient, just for general knowledge, so we can tailor to you and what you're looking for. I'll probably give it until about 6:32, another minute or so. So please don't feel any pressure to ask. And of course, if you have any questions that you would prefer not to answer or not to ask on here, by all means, feel free to ask one of the Premier Weight Loss staff, because I'm happy to answer this offline as well. That's not a problem. Well, I think I will probably call it an evening for the night, although I wanted to stop my screen share, and so you could also see my lovely cat's tail. But I do thank everyone for visiting tonight. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful evening. And if there's anything I can do or any way I can help, please don't hesitate to let any of us know. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Bye.